Welcome to Phrase by Phrase, where we study the Bible one phrase at a time. And today we are in James chapter 1, verse 14, part A. God does not tempt. That's what we looked at last time. So where does temptation come from? And some people would say, it comes from the devil. And that's true in some instances, but James reveals a more common source. In fact, in the next section, he teaches us several important points about temptation. In chapter 1, verses 14 and 15, he says, "But each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Then, when lust is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death." Now, I want to take you through several components of temptation. We'll do this over a number of posts because I want to keep these short. So let me start with the first one. The first thing I notice is the universal nature of temptation. It says, "But each one is tempted." And in saying that each one is tempted, James is teaching us really that everyone is tempted. Temptation is the universal experience of mankind from Adam all the way to Jesus. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, "No temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man." The NLT words it even better, I think. It says, "But remember that the temptations that come into your life are no different from what others experience." I mean, the point hardly needs to be supported. We know that temptation is universal. For Romans 3:23 says, "All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." And so James's point is that because literally everyone is tempted, we can conclude that there is no temptation that is unique. Some people may see that fact and they excuse their sin. In other words, they may reason that temptation is a part of human nature, and so we really can't be blamed for sin. It's just part of who and what we are. I encountered a blog that made just that claim. I want to read to you what this blogger said. She wrote, "I'm human. I am admittedly full of lustful thoughts. I can't help it. God made me a catty creature. I have indulged in certain extracurricular activities and enjoyed them immensely. People can deny their corrupt human nature all they want, but it's there inside of all of us. So I've decided that I'm going to embrace my human nature for what it is." Now, I think this woman's reasoning is not an isolated exception. I believe that she represents the general thinking of the population, that sin is universal, so it has to be natural, and everybody's doing it, so it must be okay. And yes, temptation and sin are universal, and yes, temptation and sin are natural. I mean, left to ourselves, that's exactly where we will end up, but no, it's not okay. I mean, we would never do that in the physical realm. If we allowed things to take their natural course, then we would never immunize ourselves against disease. We would never seek to eradicate disease. We would just allow it to go its natural way. Well, sin is a spiritual disease, and left to itself, it will spread like a cancer and destroy the soul. And that may be natural, but it's not normal. And so we cannot use the universality of sin and temptation as an excuse to succumb to it. And James's point is that the universal nature of temptation forces us to the opposite conclusion. Because temptation is universal, we cannot use the excuse that our temptation is unique. All right, that our situation is different, and thus we should be excused from our temptation. So we can't say everyone is doing it, so I can, and nor can we say my situation is unique, so I'm excused. We are all tempted, and so how do we beat it? Well, that's what James is going to unfold in the phrases that follow. So I hope that you will tune in and join us next time as we study the Bible phrase by phrase.